This House is now in session. Minutes of the meeting held Tuesday, 24th of July, 2018.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of this Honourable House of Assembly at its meeting on Tuesday, the 24th of July, 2018, which have been circulated, be taken as read.
Second that.
If there are no corrections or observations, let those minutes stand as confirmed.
Minutes of the
Minutes of the meeting held on Friday, the 27th of July, 2018.
motion for deferral.
Mr. Speaker, so I beg to move that the minutes of that meeting be deferred.
Beg to second that, sir.
Question is that the minutes be of the 27th of July to be deferred. All those in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The aforementioned minutes are deferred.
Announcements by Your Honor, the Speaker.
I am receipt of a message from the Honourable the Senate to the Honourable the House of Assembly. The Honourable the Senate has the honor to extend its compliments to the Honourable the House of Assembly and to reply to the message from the House inviting the Senate to appoint 4 senators to a joint select committee on the Integrity and Public Life Bill 2018. The Senate is pleased to appoint Senator the Honourable Mr. J.X. Walcott, Senator Ms. L.R. Cummins, Senator Ms. M.C. Tate, QC, Senator C.A. Franklin, to constitute the joint committee with members of the House of Assembly and to offer every good wish for the deliberations of the committee, dated the 30th day of July 2018, signed by the President.
Messages from Her Excellency, the Governor General, petitions, papers. Prime Minister. Papers.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm commanded to lay the Public Service General Order 2018. Further commanded to lay the Public Service Teachers Order 2018. I'm further commanded to lay the Public Service Part-Time Officers Order 2018. I'm further commanded to lay the Senate and House of Assembly Remuneration and Allowances of Members Order 2018. I'm further commanded to lay the Ministers and Parliamentary Secretaries Remuneration and Allowances Order 2018. I'm further commanded to lay the Parliament Administration Salary Order 2018. I'm further commanded to lay, sir, the Judges Remuneration and Pensions Salaries Order 2018. I'm further commanded to lay, sir, the Supreme Court Master of the High Court Salary Order 2018. I'm further commanded to lay, sir, the Ombudsman Salary Order 2018. And I'm further commanded to lay, sir, the Financial Services Commission Annual Report 2016 to 2017.
Government notices, private members' notices, notices of questions, reports from select committees, first readings of bills.
Mr. Speaker, sir, there are no notices.
No, first reading. First readings of bills.
Oh, the first readings of the bills would be. Okay, sit there. Sorry.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move the first reading of the Criminal Procedure Amendment Bill of 2018. I also beg to move the first reading of the Constitution Amendment Bill of 2018. And finally, I'm commanded to, I beg to move the first reading of the Offense Against the Person Amendment Bill of 2018.
Speaker, sir, I beg to second that.
The question is that those aforementioned bills be read for the first time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Yeah, penal reform.
Right.
Sanitation.
And you said the SSA too?
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move the first reading of the Sanitation Services Authority Amendment Bill 2018, as well as of the Penal System Reform Bill 2018 and the Prisons Amendment Bill 2018.
Beg to second that, sir.
Question is that those aforementioned bills be read the first time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Statements by ministers, congratulatory and/or obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, oral replies to questions, notices of motion for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day. Suspensions.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that standing orders number 6, 16, 18, 20, 42, 5, 43, 44 be suspended for the remainder of today's sitting.
Second, please.
Question is that the aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day sitting. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Government business.
Government business is now the order of the day.
Order number 5, sir. In the name of the Honourable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, to move the passing of a resolution to approve the Public Service General Order 2018.
Honorable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, before I start, I'd like to request of you that orders 5 to 13 be taken as a cognate debate.
Question is that the aforementioned order resolutions, because they're intertwined and interlinked, be taken as a cognate debate. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
I am honored as Prime Minister of this nation to stand here this morning to really correct a very wrong thing. We would have indicated for the last few years that it was our view that it was inappropriate to make one set of people carry the burden of adjustment. And in reality, that is exactly what happened when the public servants of Barbados did not receive a salary increase since 2010. The facts are that that increase, the last increase agreed to was agreed to in 2008, a full decade ago, and extended to the period 2010. Since then, there has been no increase in the remuneration for the public servants of this country. The public service of Barbados is governed by Chapter 29 of the laws of Barbados, which provides and gives the minister responsible for the civil service the authority to determine the emoluments for the workers within the public service. And, Mr. Speaker, upon election of this government to office, we would have indicated that we felt that whatever else confronted us, whatever else we had to do, that we needed to make wrong things right, and that we needed to take into account that over that period of time, the level of inflation that would have accrued would have effectively taken away from the ability of the public servants to live in this country. The reality is that we are equally cognizant of the difficult times in which we live. we're equally cognizant that we inherited arrears owed by the government of Barbados to the tune of $1.9 billion, of which 1.2 billion of that is to third-party payments. Another 500 million alone is to, just under 500 million is to the National Insurance Scheme. We are aware of the scale of the debt. We are aware of all of the difficulties that the government is now confronted in working to resolve literally 18 and 20-hour days to get this country back to a point of safety. And of course, we are aware that we had to make the decision to approach the International Monetary Fund, not because we wanted to go there, but because that is where the last government left us, not on the doorsteps, but in fact inside the working rooms, effectively because of the state in which they left the economy. I will not forget that on the first day on which I spoke to Madame Lagarde to indicate that we would be approaching them, I made it absolutely clear that you cannot go on a long march, you cannot go on a long journey without giving people breakfast. And this was an attempt to communicate to her that we had a number of persons that were already in extremis, that we had a number of persons who were already at the baller, to use a Bajan term, and who needed our assistance in order to be able to undertake this long journey. Fortunately, we were able to reach consensus on this point, and we were therefore able to include the salaries increase as part of our baseline, along with the other things which I announced in the budgetary proposals that I delivered to this honorable chamber in the month of June. I am happy, therefore, that we are in a position to hold faith with the announcements that I made on that occasion to allow us to be able to see a salary increase of 5% from April 1st, 2018, with respect to the public servants of Barbados. We also further agreed with the unions that we were not in a position, regrettably, to be able to compensate them for the period 2016 to 2018 because we simply could not afford to. The 5% increase that we are undertaking today will cost the government of Barbados $60 million across the board with respect to the salary increases. There will be an additional amount because those government pensioners, as is the tradition, will receive a cost of living allowance valued at 2/3 of the increase given to serving officers. And these, of course, would just be those who are government pensioners. In the circumstances, sir, this is not an easy time for us, but we do believe, as I indicated on that occasion, that you have to make your choices for those things that matter to you. And what matters to us is that the public servants of Barbados, who have carried the burden of adjustment for the most part of the last decade, understand that we not only appreciate them, but that we are in a position to recognize and value that contribution by making it possible to give them that increase. There are some who will want to disparage it. I know those public servants who will go to the bank to see what has been deposited for them at the end of August will not be disparaging the effort of this government with respect to that 5%, because they know it is only just that they receive it. Can I say to the country that we are out of the woods? We are not. And I make it clear that this commitment is at the beginning of the journey and not at the end of the journey. We have a long way to go to put this country back in good shape. We accept that what has happened over the decades, particularly period post-independence, has been what I've called a calcification of the arteries, where we've added and we've added and we've added. And the channel left for the blood to flow through has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. And in every other instance where that is the case, there are procedures which we have to take which will allow us to live a full and healthy life. But it does mean adjustment to the manner in which we behave. It is of regret to me that we have not yet seen a full appreciation and understanding that the lack of governance mechanisms throughout the region, and I'm not speaking to any one country, nor am I speaking to any one government, but the lack of governance arrangements throughout the region since independence in the Caribbean has led to a build-up of practices in our state-owned enterprises and our statutory corporations that, in spite of the efforts of some to try and bring it back to order, have led to the economic instability and the chronic underperformance of our governments and our countries over the course of the time since independence. And you see it from Bahamas and Jamaica in the north right down to Guyana in the south. We just see it now more fully as we concentrate on Barbados. And what am I speaking about? That we created state-owned enterprises and we created statutory corporations, and we allowed them to function in a way that did not admit of fiscal rectitude, that did not admit of transparent governance, that saw them suffer from inefficiency and incompetence, to political interference and inappropriate allocation of jobs in circumstances where funds were not available, to downright corruption and graft. Because it was easier for people to maneuver and manipulate within that environment than within the central government. Well, there's an old Barbadian saying, regrettably, that hard as you weren't here, own way you're gonna feel. And this is our moment in time. In a very real sense, the efforts of the last Public Accounts Committee to be able to deal with what transpired at the National Housing Corporation is a microcosm of what we are dealing with. We have a situation, sir, where in that instance, persons were hired without reference to whether the corporation could pay or not. And all of us like to give people jobs, that's true. But to give a man a job or a woman a job, you must be able to pay. And you must be able to pay not for today and tomorrow, but for the long run. We have a situation, sir, where at that NHC, they disrespected the rules of procurement. We have a situation, sir, where they disrespected the fact that the corporation, by admission of every senior management officer, was insolvent. From the finance officer right back through. But yet it was behaving as if it could still give out contracts and accept liabilities as if it was flush with money. Let's move to the Transport Board, sir. I'm told that the Transport Board today needs really $70 million in subsidies to move forward. No, the country just doesn't have it. I'm told that the Water Authority needs $60 million in subsidies. And that has nothing to do with the commitments that it went and gave to the construction of desalination plants that would add potentially on a take-or-pay contract, once they become operational, another $100 million in expenditure to the plant, to the Water Authority. Mr. Speaker, I share these things not to scare anybody, but to let the country know that we have serious decisions to make about the structure of government in our country, and that to say to you that what keeps me up at night, and I repeat what I've said in this chamber before, is that this government must use an approach that is sensitive, that is empathetic, that recognizes that if somebody can't work here, Let us try to see how we can make them work here instead. That uses an approach of a scalpel to reconstruct the government rather than an approach of an axe. The former governor of the central bank has taken to attacking this government at will, because in his view, we are not doing what he believes to be necessary to resolve the issues of Barbados' economic difficulties. Well, I say to you, sir, and to the country by extension, I have never had a problem with being accountable for our actions, nor do I believe that we are in a 100-meter sprint. We are in this to do the right thing for the right reasons, for the distance, for the people of this country. Sir, we believe that, and we've taken the time, and I want to say to you that I've asked the Minister of Labour to work next to me step by step by step, because we've taken the time to do the consultation that is necessary. We're in the throes now of analyzing it, and within 2 weeks, we will be speaking to the people of Barbados as to what we believe to be the roadmap for Phase 2 and for Phase 3 under the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program. We believe, sir, thank you very much. We believe, sir, that it was incumbent upon us to undertake that consultation. And what is it that is really at stake? I've already indicated that we cannot afford the transfers to a lot of these state-owned enterprises that the last government has left on our doorstep. And today is not the day to get in how Water Authority needs $60 million more, or how Transport Board needs $70 million more, or how National Housing Corporation does not function unless government can provide with $25 million a year, which it does not do and has not done on a regular basis, and hence the buildup of arrears of all of these entities. I'm happy to report to the country that we now have a system, and there are few who dropped out this month, and the ministers will be held accountable for them. But we now have a system where within 5 days of the previous month, the management accounts of state-owned enterprises are presented and delivered to the Ministry of Finance for our consideration and analysis. There are a few who believe that a habit is not to be developed of this practice, and that having done it 2 months in a row, that they shouldn't do it a third. It will not happen under this government. There will be discipline on the part of all those who are entrusted with the funds of the taxpayers to manage in this country. And the discipline doesn't only attend to reporting to the Ministry of Finance, it also attends to how we do our jobs at the individual level. And we accept that the first thing you have to do is to tell people what you expect of them that is different. So pursuant to that, there will be a meeting next week, Tuesday, with all of the finance officers of government, all of the permanent secretaries, all of the chairmen, general managers, and finance officers of statutory corporations, because regrettably, the practice of how we manage and handle our affairs down to our reporting and our banking has fallen into shambles. And it therefore means that the Accountant General is not in a position to give the kind of information that we need in order to make the kind of decisions that we need to make in a timely manner. And I don't want these decisions to be made on a monthly basis. I said, no, we need now real-time information. And real-time information means bringing us fully into the 21st century. So yes, we are jumping and transforming one time, because in the same way that we can track our foreign reserves on a day-to-day basis, I need to be able to track government's revenue and expenditure on a daily basis. And that is what we are trying to do to bring this government back into a position to be able to manage its affairs appropriately, sir. there was a time, and a previous Barbados Labour Party government made sure that after 1994, that we also sought to bring order to these transfers to state-owned enterprises. And I would be a hypocrite if I did not acknowledge that a predecessor of mine, the former member for St. Peter, stood here and brought order in large measure to a lot of these state-owned enterprises by ensuring that those entities that wanted to create new jobs had to consult with the Ministry of Finance to make sure first that they had money, and had to consult with the Ministry of Civil Service for approval on the creation of those jobs. And that practice was abandoned in 2008. And once that practice was abandoned in 2008, the mountain of debt started to rise. And what was left as $6 billion in debt has been received as almost $15 billion in debt. Now, I don't ask of much other than discipline. That's all I want, you know. Discipline and cleanliness. Cleanliness in terms of the country, cleanliness in terms of the practices of the corporations, such that they can be accountable and transparent for the taxpayers' money. People don't like to part with money. But if they feel they're getting value for the money that they're parting with, they can at least appreciate it and understand it. Our duty is to ensure that they get value for it. So, sir, over the course of the next 2 weeks, we will continue the process of analyzing the responses of the public. We started with the social partnership a month ago. In our own parliamentary party, we had a night dedicated to the same process, which took us about 6 hours. We then determined that we would go to the wider public. And I want to thank the people of Barbados for taking the time and for responding in their large numbers. Our response rate was almost 5,000 people answering 102 questions that on average would take people 20 minutes to answer. Sir, I'm not sure those who know anything about polling, but might I say to the Honourable Chamber that this is an extraordinarily, phenomenally high level of response from the people of Barbados. For almost 5,000 people over the course of a week to take the time and to answer for us what they believe to be important. And I'm told that there are some people who have not yet gotten over themselves, who continue to believe that taking shots at the government is to be their daily exercise. I have no difficulty with that because I'm not sure what else they're doing when the day comes. But the bottom line is this, that you can't only tell people the entities that you want them, or you think that they may want to say, well, they are not necessary, without giving people an appreciation of what a government does. So you do put in a Supreme Court, and you do put in an immigration department, and you do put in a police force, because if people don't know what is essential, they can't make a proper judgment as to what might be highly desirable or optional but better delivered elsewhere. And it would have been an unfair act for us to simply put in those things that we think may be low-hanging fruit without putting for the country, especially after 30 years of not teaching civics to the people and the students of the nation, not explaining to the country what government does. The bottom line is, sir, that without telling tales out of school, everybody knows that a country needs border security. So you will get in excess of 90% on immigration department. Will you get that on other departments that people feel may not be as relevant in the third decade of the 21st century to be upon us shortly as they were at the point of independence. Now, we accept, therefore, that the reconstruction cannot be as the former governor of the central bank wanted, which is send home 5,000 people, send home 6,000 people. This government is not in that. 5,000 or 6,000 people are not 5,000 or 6,000 mangoes on a tree to be picked, sir. There are people who have responsibilities to themselves and their families. And I say to you that whatever else is done, the structure of government has to follow the purpose of government. And the structure, once determined, has then best to be analyzed whether it is a service that can be done from within or whether it is a service that is best done by someone selling it to us. Now, we are very clear as to the precepts that the Barbados Labour Party stands for. And the precepts of economic enfranchisement given to those who populate this country the right to participate in the ownership of the things provided to the people of this country has been a precept and principle that has been with this party for the 80 years that it has existed. I would not know, sir, how to approach this effort without remaining faithful to those philosophies and principles. I equally would not know how to approach this effort without showing, not through an articulation of statements that we care, but through our actions that we care. And what do I mean? In August 13, 2013, the former Minister of Finance brought the first 19-month fiscal adjustment strategy, the then member for St. Michael Northwest. The next month, the former Prime Minister Stewart, delivered himself of words in an interview to the press that no two people will go home and that there will be a lasting first out policy. The problem is that it was just words. Words was all he had. Words. I can't sing, so I won't sing the song. But words was all he had. This time I've determined that it cannot be words. And whatever the process is that we go through, it has to be a situation where in the office of the Prime Minister, there is a unit to mitigate any adjustment that has to be made. And that we have to do so with the context of the wider public service needs and modernizing it. We have a whole government that, look, and more paper coming in here as we speak now. Everything is paper. Everything is wood. Wood being chopped down to make paper. But yet the rest of the country and the rest of the world using technology. And Barbados government has miles of paper, not feet high, miles of paper to be converted in, to be digitized, and has to be done as a project to be able to bring us into the 21st century. I have instructed the minister in the Ministry of Economic Affairs, the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central and the Member for St. Peter, to work with the international and regional financial institutions to develop a project such that any adjustment that has to be made from the public service can also allow those coming out to be able to band together to form an entity that will help the government digitize its records, its decades of records. while at the same time undertaking retraining in new areas of activity that the government must have as part of its functioning. The hospital cannot continue, and a member for the city of Bridgetown knows this, without moving fully in to medical transcription. The Attorney General knows that the law courts cannot continue without moving fully in to legal transcription. But are the posts and the manner in which the public service is set up, does it admit of that at this point in time without refocusing, restructuring, and retraining? No, it does not. And this is what we've inherited. And this is what we will take our time and do. Will there be some consequences to people? Of course there will be. I'm not going to stand here and fool anybody, Mr. Speaker. But will the consequences be of the magnitude of 4,000 and 5,000 and 6,000 jobs? No, there will not be. Equally, we appreciate that there are some people who may say, look, I reached 60 years old. The circumstances of my family are such, or the circumstances of my health are such, that I would rather take my leave now and go into voluntary separation on a platform to be negotiated and settled with the social partnership and unions in particular. And all of that will be presented to the country. So I want to give the people of Barbados the assurance, sir, that we got this. But we have it in a way that will be sensitive, that will be empathetic, that will be caring. In the budget, I asked for $5 million to be allocated to the efforts of government in the department that has the responsibility for helping people to live. A department that you know well, sir, the welfare department. And we are going to refocus how that department also treats to people, because Barbadians are very proud people. And the notion that you can just tell somebody, go down there, or treat them, so can't happen. Not that the officers are doing that, but that is the sense in which the community may pass a judgment on some people that makes people feel cute. There will be a unit in my office, because I'm not asking anybody to take responsibility for caring. There will be a unit in my office that will allow all those who may be the victims of restructuring to be able to work with us, and for us to work with them to see how, through a series of measures, whether access to government land, farming, whether access to licenses, whether through affirmative action that I will ask the Attorney General to enshrine in legislation for the period of adjustment, such that the government may direct a portion of its spend on procurement to be able to assist those who are to be the victims of any adjustment. Whether in the modernization of government and the transformation of government, as I said earlier, with digitization, whether the fact is that we have over $100 million in capital projects to spend now on roads, such that the private sector construction companies will need people between the IDB, the CDB, and CAF over the next 2-3 years to help in the construction of those roads and bridges that are to come down. Whatever it is, we have the project that is to be executed shortly to transform all of our street lights, and it's at the point of analysis of the procurement now, to transform all of our street lights over the course. They tell me 2 years, but I don't intend for it to take 2 years, because many hands make light work. So that we are going to use government's capital program in a creative way. Those projects that exist now, the transformation that we want to see for government, as well as the powers of legislation and the powers of allocation of government's wider resources to cushion the blow as we go through this restructuring process. Sir, I hate to use myself as an example, from the point of view that I know that I have a battle that if I could only find a little more time in each day and a little more sleep in each day, that I could get through this problem easier with respect to the loss of weight. It's getting there, but it's not going as quickly as I would like. And it's certainly not as comfortable as I would like. And when we go downstairs and the others eating what they want to eat for the next couple of weeks or months, I can't. I can't. And does it hurt? Of course it hurts. Will it kill me? No, it won't kill me. Will I be healthier after it? Yes, I will be. So that every day the rain don't fall, and every day the sun don't shine. That's life. Barbados is at this juncture in our history where we need to tighten the belt, suck it in, suck it up, tighten the belt, and if the belt is pinching somebody on this side, everybody gonna lift weight and go and help the body who getting pinched. And if it turn around and it pinching somebody on the other side, we will come to the churches and we will go to the community groups and we will, as the people say, we got this because we are not leaving any man or any woman or any child behind. Sir? These are the things that confront us. As I said, this morning specifically is about holding faith to give people breakfast before the long journey. Others have a different way. I respect that fact. But I want them to respect that we too have the right to determine the roadmap that we choose to determine as a government. And they will be clear that on making that choice, we have no difficulty in being held accountable to it next year, the year after, or more importantly, whenever the time comes again for people to make their decision. We accept that with maturation, becoming an adult, comes the obligation to make choices. We make this choice to do our business this way, and we are satisfied in our judgment that we can bring people to safety across the board and help them to recover what will come, regrettably, to be described as the lost decade of this country. I pray that the public will work with us in good faith, recognizing that what we are trying to do is to stabilize the patient, allow the patient then to enter into a period of recovery, recuperation, and after recovery and recuperation, physiotherapy, such that we will as a nation be once again fiscally fit. Fit for purpose, fit to deliver according to our philosophies, fit to deliver through our programs rooted in a philosophical framework that says that we can do the best for each of our citizens. But to use the words of a great Calypsonian, we can only make it if we try. This morning is about trying on that effort, recognizing that those who were left out have now to be brought into the march, and that once that is done, we then start this long march together, and we will talk to the country every step of the way, because we shall not leave anyone behind, even if on occasion some may falter or some may fall. I'm obliged to you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for St. Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It gives me quite a lot of pleasure to stand to support this bill in a number of capacities. as a representative of the people of St. Peter, many of whom are public servants of this country, it also gives me pleasure to support this bill as the Minister of Labor of this country in this government. This Barbados Labour Party was founded out of the struggle of workers and working people in this country. Just a couple of weeks ago, we celebrated a day of national significance, a day that workers gathered in Golden Square, and the famous words were uttered, "Today's a funny night," and out of that exercise, out of that engagement of people, out of that gathering, arose a leader who determined that the working people of this country had to be represented, had to be given a fair break in the sharing of the bounty of the country. That great leader, who Barbados generally refer to as Moses, who we know as the founder of this great Barbados Labour Party, took upon himself and engaged with others the responsibility of leading in a cause to bring working people out of their circumstances to a position where they could live comfortably in this country. Out of that struggle was born this Barbados Labour Party, and out of that struggle was born the Barbados Workers' Union. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to say to you and to the country that within this Barbados Labour Party, within our DNA, is an understanding that the people, the working people of this country must be supported, must be treated as human beings, and must be treated fairly. The lost decade that this country endured between 2008 and 2018 really, well, from 2010 to 2018 was a period that represented a devaluation of the dollar of every public servant in Barbados. And even though the last government may have said or given the impression that they were not engaging with the IMF, and they talked about devaluation, about something to be avoided. But that last government inflicted on the public servants of Barbados a devaluation of their dollar. And they did what this Barbados Labour Party is not wont to do. They place the burden of adjustment, they place the burden of trying to save the economy, a failed attempt, well, many failed attempts, but they place the burden firmly and squarely and almost solely on the shoulders of the working people of Barbados, particularly the public servants of Barbados. This Barbados Labour Party does not engage in destroying working people in an attempt to save the country. Barbados is signatory to many ILO conventions, but there is one that takes center stage and that has taken center stage in recent years. And it is a convention that speaks to decent work. And that convention speaks, even though titled Decent Work, speaks to work that is worthwhile, that is beneficial. It speaks to conditions of work and conditions of service. But it also speaks to fair and reasonable remuneration or pay for work that is done. And this Barbados Labour Party supports that convention. It understands that when public servants come to work, and I want to say to this chamber and to the country, that the vast majority of public servants turn up every day to work and to give good service for this country. And we have to move away from what sometimes people engage in, which is painting with a broad brush when you see a few recalcitrant persons. And I want to say that in every situation, in every organization, the honorable member for the city, even though a part of a disciplined force, would know that there are, even in a military organization, a few people who don't perform. In churches, and I'm a member of a church, I've led a church. In churches, there are a couple of people, and the honorable member of St. Michael West would know that as well. There would be one or two people who don't perform up to standard, and it happens also in the public service. But the vast majority of public servants turn up to work every day in service of this country. And I want to say to this honorable chamber that the burden of government and the burden of governance in this country is borne by the public servants of this country. And I want to commend them for a job well done. And I want to commend them even more for continuing to do their job, continuing to fulfill their responsibility, even during an 8 to 10 year period, when every time they went to the supermarket, their pay was buying less and less and less and less. They continued to work. They continued to be faithful to their country. They continued to be faithful to their consciences, even at a time when they were suffering, even during a period when the last government put the entire burden of trying to resurrect the economy on their shoulders. And I want to commend them for that. I want to say further, Mr. Speaker, that this government does not see people just as resources. Those of us who study economics, the first thing you study is that there is land, there is labor, and there is capital. Now, I've always had a challenge with that, and I've joined a party that I understand, based on its development, has also had a challenge with that concept. Not that those of us who work are not resources and resourceful, but human beings, workers, are not, cannot, have never been, can never be placed in the same bracket as land and machines. Because workers are human beings. And so when this Barbados Labour Party approaches governance, as we begin the journey of rescuing, rebuilding, and restoring a destroyed economy, as we understand that the coming months, maybe 2 years, will be challenging times, we do so and we commence this journey understanding that those who have suffered, the human beings, the people of this country who have suffered, must first be given some measure of comfort as we approach the road ahead. And that, Mr. Speaker, is the reason why we, in our discussions with the social partners, and particularly in our negotiations with the representatives of workers in this country, came to an agreement where we gave a 5% increase to the wages and salaries of those public servants of this country. Because as the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, the Prime Minister, said earlier, and often says, we have to prepare people for the march. We have to prepare people for the journey ahead. And that preparation is not just talking them through the journey. That preparation also includes and involves giving them the wherewithal. And that is why in my contribution for the budget, during that budgetary debate, I took issue with even introducing a concept of giving and taking back. Because this Barbados Labour Party, and every honourable member in this chamber, those present members or past members, recognize that as we approach any adjustment period, any austerity period, whatever term we may use to refer to what lies ahead of us, we understand that it is important to ensure that the base upon which people will operate is solidified. It is a concept that is known to anybody who has built anything. It is known to engineers. Whenever weight is going to be put on a structure, we must ensure that the structure can handle the weight. Otherwise, you get bridges collapsing, you get houses collapsing. The structure must always be able to bear the weight. This Barbados Labour Party, understanding that some of the burden will be borne by workers, have made the decision that we must put workers in a position to be able to handle whatever is ahead of them. But I want to say to the chamber, to this honourable chamber, and to the country, that we, in our discussions with our partners, have come to the conclusion and have made the decision, and it has been clearly enunciated in the budgetary proposals, that the burden will be shared. And so, for example, we have asked tourism businesses to share some of the burden. We have asked visitors to this country, those who use our airport, to bear some of the burden. This government, this Barbados Labour Party, is the party that in 1994 said to the country, never again will we allow burdens to be put as people standing in front of a firing squad and be mowed down, even if it appears as though the cause is good. And it was this Barbados Labour Party that introduced legislation that prevents public servants' pay from being cut in this country. This Barbados Labour Party treats people as human beings. And so we say to the country, we say to the workers of Barbados, we are not in the business of cutting salaries. We are not in the business of sending home people by the thousands. This Barbados Labour Party is in the business of building a country. And even though we are in a situation where our country has almost been destroyed by the previous government, we will rebuild it, understanding that the workers of this country are going to be called upon to play a pivotal role in the rebuilding of the country. We expect, Mr. Speaker, that through the adjustment process, rather than destroy our institutions, we expect that all workers, the workers in the public service of this country, will be placed in a position where during and after the adjustment, the institutions that are necessary to assist in the rebuilding of the country will still be intact, and that those persons who work in those institutions will still be motivated to continue their work on behalf of the country in the rebuilding exercise. This government is a government that is characterized by caring. And that is why in our recent election campaign, a heart was very visible in the campaign. That was not PR. That heart was not just to make people feel good about a campaign. That heart symbolized what is within the DNA of this party. We are a caring party. We are a party that cares about people, a government with a heart, a government that is determined to take the people along with it. In any adjustment exercise, there is dislocation, and the Prime Minister, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, began to speak to it just now in her contribution, in her lead-off of this debate. And I just want to echo, repeat, reinforce something that she said before I take my seat. This government has started a process of engaging that segment of our society that we refer to as the third sector. Faith-based organizations, community-based organizations, cooperatives, non-governmental organizations, because we recognize that people matter. We also recognize that as a government, as members of parliament, we are not going to know in every situation when persons may be feeling additional pain that we are not aware of. But we recognize that there are organizations in the country that are sometimes closer to the action than governments might be, or that public servants who have responsibility for some of those functions, welfare, etc., may be aware of. And so we have started a process where we will engage the third sector, engage the faith-based organizations, engage cooperatives, community-based organizations, and non-governmental organizations in the process of ensuring that Barbadians do not fall through the cracks. That process, Mr. Speaker, is intended to reinforce what we have said and what we continue to say to the country, and that is, we are a party that cares about people, about the working people of the country, and about the people of the country generally. And I say to you, Mr. Speaker, and I say to the chamber, that beginning an adjustment process by increasing the salaries of public servants is something that is probably unheard of in economic circles. Because as a country or as a government approaches adjustment, the almost automatic reaction is that we bring spending not to a halt, but well, what can be brought to a halt is brought to a halt, and what can be reduced is reduced. But there's almost never a thinking of increasing any kind of spending. But I want to commend the Prime Minister, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, for approaching this period and by standing and saying to a very powerful institution globally, the International Monetary Fund, that even though we are approaching you, even though we know that we are we are not in a good situation, even we know that there may be tough times ahead, the Honourable Prime Minister has said to the leadership of the International Monetary Fund, our people, the people of this country who have suffered so much over the past 8 years, will not be placed on the front line. The foundation is going to be supported and solidified before we enter into a program with you. And I'm also happy to be able to say that based on that kind of leadership by our Prime Minister, based on that leadership, based on standing up, being counted, and articulating to the leadership of the IMF, we've been able to go through with offering and agreeing to the 5% increase, but we've been able to do it having the International Monetary Fund understand what we are doing. We've been able to have them understand that what our Prime Minister proposed to them makes sense. And that is what leadership is all about. That is what we have not had for a decade now. And I am happy, Mr. Speaker, to be part of a government where the leadership of that government is now seen as the strong leadership that Barbados used to provide to the region and to the international community. And I think we ought to be proud of the leadership that has been restored by this government and by our Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I support the strengthening of the foundation. I support the understanding that those who come to work every day in our public service need to be respected and need to be remunerated in a way that allows them to live in this country. I support this increase, understanding that each of those public servants have dependents, whether they are children, godchildren, spouses, elderly parents, uncles, aunts. I support this increase, understanding that each public servant in Barbados carries some burden. And so if we are asking them to carry burden on behalf of the country, we must recognize and understand that each of them is carrying their own burden. And so, respecting those public servants, I want to commend this bill to this Honourable House. I want to commend the bill to the House because this bill recognizes that workers are human beings and that these human beings will be partners with us in the rescuing, rebuilding, and restoring of this country. I thank you.
The Honourable Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for an opportunity to join this debate. But first, let me commend the Honourable Member for St. Peter for a well thought out presentation, who I am sure will improve constantly in his presentations, as we saw an excellent presentation this morning. And I'm sure the Honourable House would join me in congratulating him for an excellent presentation that he delivered of himself on this bill. Mr. Speaker, in trying to keep with a tradition that I have set for myself, I again want to entreat the Honourable House with a passage from the Bible as it relates to this particular piece of legislation. And it comes from a book that is not often used, but an important book nonetheless. Haggai chapter 1, verse 6. Ye have sown much and bring in little. Ye eat, but ye have not enough. Ye drink, but ye are not filled with drink. Ye clothe you, but there is none warm. And he that earneth wages to put it into a bag with holes. Mr. Speaker, over the last 8 years, the people of this country have been putting their wages into a bag with holes. Because nobody could see their savings increase. Nobody could see the results or fruit of their labor. Because, Mr. Speaker, people were working on a fixed income. At the same time, inflation was eating away at what we call their savings. Inflation was eating away at their disposable earnings that they could use for other things. So those were the holes that the people of this country were faced to live under. Because, Mr. Speaker, for the last 8 years, this country was under a wage freeze. No increases for fixed income people, no increases for the civil service. But it goes further, Mr. Speaker, because if we take the civil service as one part of society, it also takes into account the other part of society, those working in the private sector, who depend on those civil servants to come to them to buy their services, to buy the food that is sold at the cook shop, to buy the services of the hairdresser, to buy the services of the nail technician. And if the 25,000 civil servants are not seeing a benefit from their toil, then they have less money to spend at the hairdresser. They have less money to spend at the nail technician. And you know what the result of that wage freeze was, Mr. Speaker? That not only did the civil servants not see an increase, but the nail technician and the hairdresser and the taxi operator and the mechanic, they not only saw an increase in the cost of living at the supermarket, but they saw a decrease in their income. So they had it from both sides. Both a decrease in revenue and an increase in expenses. And I am so happy today, Mr. Speaker, to see an increase in the civil service remuneration, an increase in the emoluments that people will receive. Because I know that that will have a knock-on effect throughout the whole economy. The economists will tell you that if you come and put $200 in an economy, that's not $200. That $200 is spent, and the persons that you spend it with go and spend it with somebody else. And those people spend it with somebody else. And a $200 put in an economy is equivalent to $500 or $600 in real terms. And if we intend to put $60 million in this economy by giving our civil service a 5% pay increase, we know that that will have a significant knock-on effect in the private sector as well. So it means that people will be able to sell their services. People will be able to sell their goods. And you'll have that money circulating throughout the economy. And I want to make this call to the private sector. Because what we saw is the same wage freeze that we saw in the government sector was adopted by many companies and many institutions in the private sector. And I want to ask the private sector today from the floor of this House, that if the government has seen its way to increase the salaries of its workers by 5%, I want the private sector of this country to look at lifting that wage freeze and increasing the wages of all the people in Barbados commensurate with what the government has led to do. And I think this is an important move that the government has taken, because we need to put some money in people's pockets if we're going to ask them to endure a stabilization process over the next few years. Because people need to be girded up. People need to be assured that they will know where their next meal is coming from. People will need to understand that this government is trying to plug the holes in the bag that they've been carrying for the last 8 years. And people need to understand that we can work together to make this country better and make their circumstances better as we move through this adjustment period. Mr. Speaker, in Bajan parlance, when you get a 6 love in dominoes, that's a sow. And when you get a 21 love in road tennis, that's a sow. So if you get 30 love in the election, that got to be a sow too. And I would suggest, Mr. Speaker, as a what? A poor, a what? A boar. I'm being told by my colleagues it's a boar, but I want to suggest that that election was the sow election of 2018. And that election taught us a lot. And that result taught us a lot. That result taught us, Mr. Speaker, that you can never take the people for granted. The people endured 8 years of not getting a salary increase. 8 years of not seeing a return from their investment in a government. 8 years of not seeing value for money in the taxes that were deducted from the wages that they earned. 8 years of seeing an administration who did nothing to help to progress their responsibilities or help to progress the people and the aspirations of the people of this country. 8 years of an administration that continued to award contract after contract to their cronies and did not take notice of the average person in this country. Well, the people of Barbados spoke about taking them for granted with the sow election. And now the government, the current administration, has taken the time and the effort to give back to the people of Barbados who endured so much over that 8-year period. And this 5% increase, of course we would want to give more. Of course we would want to give not only for the period from April to now, but before. But the truth is, the money is not there. So we've come to an agreement of 5%, not a coping subsidy, because remember, Mr. Speaker, there was discussion about a coping subsidy. But I'm happy that we were able to reach agreement and got past the idea of a coping subsidy and we were able to get to a 5% increase, which I was all for from the beginning, rather than a coping subsidy. And I am so happy that from next month, we will be able to see that increase in the civil servants' pay packet. And I am sure that we will then see that knock-on effect throughout this economy. So, Mr. Speaker, I fully and completely will support these measures. I see it as a wide-ranging program that will have a significant effect throughout this economy, that people from all walks of life will benefit, not only those in the civil service. And I always bring to the attention, whatever we do in the civil service and whatever we do in government, because of the large nature of government, because of the large amounts of people that we employ in the civil service, will have a tremendous effect on the private sector. Will have a tremendous effect on many, many families throughout this country. And will have the desired effect of showing the people of this nation that the Barbados Labour Party intends to carry them through this period of adjustment. That the Barbados Labour Party and the leadership of the Barbados Labour Party cares about them and cares that they too must get to succeed in this nation. And we, the people of this government, Mr. Speaker, fully respect that and fully want all people of this nation to benefit and to succeed. And the only way we can do that is by giving them the necessary resources to make them succeed. Mr. Speaker, this nation has been through a very difficult time. We all know the consequences. We all know the causes, and we are working to find the solutions. And I have no doubt that this is the first step towards a solution to making this country better. I'm obliged.
Honourable Member for St. Michael South.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support that which is before this House and to endorse the comments made by the member for St. Michael Northeast, the Honourable Prime Minister of Barbados, and the comments also made so eloquently by the member for St. Peter. I have spent most of my adult life as a public servant. I spent 18 years working in different departments in the government of Barbados. My first real job was in the value-added tax office when I was about 20 or 21 years old as a tax officer. I gained everything, Mr. Speaker, sir, that I have in life really because of my association with the public service. It has been, for me, one of the most pleasant experiences of my life. And I am so grateful today that I am able to be part of a team that will give back to a public service that has given me so much. And it is because of that, sir, and for many other reasons, that I feel that we have no choice but to support this increase for public servants. Mr. Speaker, sir, I share the view held by the member for St. Peter that there are many good public servants. And I do not just say so, sir. I say so because I know, having worked with the public servants every day, having learned from decent public servants who grace the public service of Barbados, having recognized that Barbados' civil service has perhaps the most excellent reputation of civil services across the Caribbean because of the people who work in the institutions. And it is because of the strength of our institutions, and it is because of the quality and the character of our public servants that the reputation of Barbados' public service is indeed what it is. And so, sir, we are asking all of Barbados to endorse this 5% wage increase for public servants because the truth is they deserve an increase. And at the end of the day, as the Honourable Prime Minister said, and as I feel in my heart, sir, Mr. Speaker, everything we do in life comes down to choices. And the choices that were made for Barbadians in many ways brought us here. If you look at some of the decisions, sir, that were made over the last 10 years by the former government of this country, by the Democratic Labour Party government between 2008 and 2018, it is those choices that brought us here. And sir, we can look at it as a lesson to be learned from how to engage with people and how to engage as a leadership. But there certainly are lessons for us to take forward. And that the things that came to define the last administration must never define this Barbados Labour Party administration, sir. It comes down to choices. And I like poetry. There is a poem with which I'm familiar. The first line goes, "The choices we make are the legacy of the people we know." And I feel as we occupy the 30 seats that we occupy in this House, all of us, that we have to recognize that the choices we make are the legacy of the people we know. And we're not governing, sir, for strangers, for people who've never graced our shores, for people who have never worked in this country, whose blood, sweat, and tears, sir, are not in the soil of this country. We are governing on behalf of Barbadians. And I have always felt that if we are able to create a country that Barbadians are happy to live in and to work in, then naturally it will be a country where people will be happy to visit. But we have to build a Barbados for Barbadians. And that a large share of that would be the public servants of this country. And therefore we have a responsibility to look out for Barbadians. So our choices, sir, brought us here. So our choices govern the past. And our choices will set us, sir, into the future and determine the legacy that I hopefully can leave for my daughter. I asked her the other day if she's proud of the way I conduct myself so far, and she said, yes, Daddy, I am proud of you. She did. For the first time, because she's a difficult child to please. But at the end of the day, we must conduct ourselves in ways that will please our children and bring some honor to our family, and not in any other way. We don't stay here because we are giants. I say it all the time. It is the men and women of this country who decided to vote for us so that we could act on their behalf. So our choices will govern our past, and our choices will govern our future. But sir, that poem also goes on to say, the choices we make determine our life. So our choices, Mr. Speaker, sir, will govern our present. And we came to this parliament today to ask for this country and for the members in this place, sir, to give public servants a 5% raise in their salary. And if anything we have done in this chamber, sir, and in the last 2 months we've been here, we've done so many things. It is of this that I am most proud. Because we do so, sir, in a time of strict and adverse realities for most Barbadians. We do so at a time when our country is hurting. But it is a bold, a focused, a purposeful and determined leader who says that even in the face of these hard times, I will look out for the people of this country. And that we must look out for our public servants. I was speaking before I got up to the Honourable Member for St. Peter, sir. And we were having a conversation about the debt that is in front of this country that we face. We left 6 billion, they now have us at 15 billion. And we were having a conversation about you don't mind being in debt if you could see what you do with it. If you could see where the money went, if you could see a road, if you could see a school, if it is possible that perhaps you had some education paid for, if you could see something. Even if there were bad choices that were made and we could see where the money went, you could at least talk about it. But you mean you can't even talk about what to do with the money because you can't see anything at all that was done with the money? So we have more debt in Barbados, and we cannot show anything at all for what has happened to this money. Well, this has to be unprecedented. And we have a responsibility, sir, through our choices to do better than the last government did. And so everything at the end of the day invariably is going to bring us back to choices. And the Honourable Prime Minister said it's not going to happen overnight, Mr. Speaker, sir. We know that it is going to take a long time. I had the privilege of addressing the St. Cyprian's Primary School's graduation, and there's a school in my constituency in St. Michael South. And their motto is slow and steady must succeed. Slow and steady must succeed. take your time and you're going to get where you need to go. And so we are not acting, sir, in ways that are improper. We are not being reckless with the way we approach the government's finances. We know that there is a lot to do, and we know we have a limited time to do it. But we also are aware that slow and steady, you must succeed. And I have, sir, in my constituency, people who come to me daily for a job. There are men who say to me, I want a job at NCC, that they were sent just so for a job at NCC. They were sent for jobs at sanitation. They were just sent for jobs. None of those jobs lasted for a long time. They were given jobs, as all of us experienced, just before the last election and the election prior. And these men were sent for jobs in positions that do not exist. So you send, because there's an election, you send 100 or 200 young people for a job, knowing full well that the positions don't exist. So when they come to me, having been exposed to what I could only consider to be a bad and improper habit, I have to say to them, but that's not how it works. And that in your own interest and in the country's interest, I cannot send you for a job in a position that does not exist. But if you hold strain and you work with us, that we guarantee that eventually there will be enough legitimate jobs for all of you, so that you could have a job that you can feel proud of, that really does exist. And sir, you see that we are struggling now with the large salaries going to these state-owned enterprises, Mr. Speaker, sir. And the reason is because, by and large, they've been sending people for jobs in positions that don't exist. And a lot of the work that we have to do, sir, is to bring that into some kind of structure. I, as much as I love the people of St. Michael's South, and as much as I want to be able to employ the people in my constituency, and hopefully, sir, when we expand through the blue economy and there's work, I could employ the people in mine and in your constituency. But at the time, for the time, slow and steady must succeed. And I cannot be part of any program that will seek deliberately to mislead young people, which is what happened over the last 10 years. I mean, you could fool some people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all of the time. And it was because the people knew what they did to them in 2013 by sending them for jobs on the eve of an election and taking them away, then sending them for jobs on the eve of the 2018 election, knowing that eventually they will have to take them away. The people have said enough is enough, and we are not standing for that. But sir, what really is a pay raise, and why am I so happy to see the public servants get it? Sir, there is a relationship between an employer and an employee. And based on the circumstances of the employer, and based on the value that they assign or ascribe to the employee, they may negotiate a raise. And it is my belief, it's only my belief, that the circumstances that affected this country were because of the choices of the Democratic Labour Party government. So that they could not afford a pay raise for the people is not the fault of the people. That they could not afford a pay raise for the people was because of the choices that they made. And that invariably the burden that was made to carry because of the incompetence of the last administration was on the same backs of the public servants. And sir, implicit in that arrangement is not only whether you can afford it or not, but implicit in that arrangement is how do you value your employee. And I also hold the view that the last administration had very little value in public servants. I have heard some of the worst remarks being made about public servants in this country from members of the last administration. They had no regard for the public servants of this country. So there was no pay raise coming. One, because they took the money and did as they liked with it. And then secondly, because they had no regard for public servants. And I, sir, as I told you, I have been a public servant for most of my life. I have a lot of time and a lot of regard for public servants. But I also know...
I remember you're still a public servant, huh? You're a servant of the public.
I am still a servant of the public, sir. But you know what I mean. What would you call the public there? When I was employed as a government employee in the departments of the government, you understand what I mean, sir. I will always be a public servant. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, I remember every time the public servants in this country got a pay raise, that suddenly things in town and in other places would go up almost to the dollar of the pay raise that the public servants got. People wait for public servants to get a pay increase so that they could increase their prices. I heard the Honourable Member for Christchurch West ask for the private sector to offer their employees a wage increase. I support it. But if they don't want to do that, or if they feel that they can't do that, then I implore them, sir, to be good corporate citizens and not to raise the prices of their goods and their services only because we have given public servants a wage increase. So that the dollar that the public servants now receive could go a little bit further. The economists would tell me about wage push, inflation, and when there is an increase in wages and so on, there is a reality that people have to recoup what they put out. We haven't charged an additional anything. The private sector, sir, has a responsibility as part of this process to toe the line. All through the election, we said we are in this together. There is only one Barbados. And to engage in such a practice, if the private sector determines to do it, will not only hurt the citizens, it will hurt the country, and it will criminalize the corporate sector, and I hope that they do not do it. Because we have to stand in this chamber, sir, and be defenders of the people who put their trust in us. But then there are practical reasons for which I support this pay raise, Mr. Speaker, sir. There are practical reasons. This is August. And for those of us who are in public life, we know that August, well, all of us in Barbados, we know full well that August is a really hard time for people because you now have to deal with back to school expenses. And every single day there are people coming to me asking for support for back to school. And there are some public servants who call me almost every day asking when we get this pay increase. So for the people who have said that the pay increase ain't mean nothing, they are obviously not public servants. Because I know public servants are looking forward to this pay increase. I know that for a fact, so there are practical reasons. But for all of us who offer ourselves as representatives of the people, Mr. Speaker, sir, we know in August that people come to us over and over asking for support for back to school. People have now to buy uniforms and socks and shoes. People have to buy books. People have to be able to feed the children at this time of the year. So it comes at a good time. Sir, there are other practical reasons. People have to pay their rent. I do not know what is happening across the rest of Barbados, but for some reason in St. Michael's South, it seems as if household owners, landlords, have taken some kind of something that encourages them to put people out. I am now faced with so many young people, mostly young women with children, who cannot pay their rents, who are asking for some kind of support. And we may have to have a conversation with some landlords too and ask them to hold straight. But that this pay raise comes at a time when it will help the people of this country. And all of us, sir, we know that people have to eat. People have to buy food. So Again, I've heard many people say 5% in a percent. I know people waiting on this 5%. When I was a public servant, I would wait. Although I am a public servant, when I was a different public servant, I knew people would have to wait. We would wait for a pay increase. But sir, all of us in this thing together. All of us are in this together. And if there is one thing of which I am proud, is that even though in the last 10 years, Mr. Speaker, sir, public servants have not received a pay raise, and public servants have had their reputation pilloried, and some of the most vitriolic things said about public servants from people who were supposed to be representing them. If there is one thing of which I am proud, is that they have conducted themselves with dignity and grace in the face of this unnecessary and unjust criticism. Every time Barbados has a first-class public service. And they also recognize, sir, that we, all of us, we share resources. We don't have a lot. There is a theory called the tragedy of the commons, where it is believed that some people will overly exploit the limited resources to the extent that the collective moves in such a way that, pursuing their own independent interests, that eventually you destroy the resources for everybody. So we now have to look at all of our public resources, our public spaces. We have to look at the markets and how we treat to the markets. We have to look at our public parks and see if we destroy them or not, so that people can have access to them. I've heard people say, some people, when they get frustrated, that they don't care because the government don't care about them. We have a responsibility to show the people that we care about them. And when I worked in the social services sector, sir, there were some people who would visit National Assistance Board today. You know, Mr. Speaker, sir, you actually held the job that I held before I held it, when we were at Child Care Board. There are some people who would visit Child Care Board today for services, leave Child Care Board, go to welfare, leave welfare, go to National Assistance Board. They call it agency shopping, trying their best to get as much as they can from all the different agencies. That is wrong, because what they do is that they prevent somebody else from being able to access those resources. And we have a responsibility, because all of us are in this together, to make sure that everybody else can get something. It is not about me or you or anybody else, but it is about this country. And sir, I feel that in many ways that this adversity to the people may seem like an enemy. I feel that people are looking down the road, filled with hope now because the Labour Party is in office, but are looking down the road and thinking to themselves, all they see was hard times. But I also am aware of Psalm 23 that tells me that the Lord will prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies.
All right.
And so when I look at the Building Blocks program, I know the Lord is preparing a table before me. When I look at the trust loans to come, I know the Lord is preparing a table before me. When I look at the $250,000 for innovation that we will also bring, and the new trucks, both in sanitation and other places, and the buses that we will be bringing, I know that even in the face of these hard times, that there is somebody who is looking out for the people, and that this Barbados Labour Party administration, sir, is doing right by the people of Barbados, even in these harsh economic times. And so, times are tough. I mean, they're tough. And there's nobody in here that could say times are not tough. They're tough. People are faced with some of the hardest choices that they've ever had to face. And the question that we have to ask is, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here as a country? I believe that we, as a Barbados Labour Party administration, have done all the right things to date. We have engaged the public every step along the way with the decisions that we have taken. The Honourable Prime Minister has been as transparent in all of her doings as a Prime Minister can. So set is this Barbados Labour Party administration on being a disciplined party, recognizing that our choices will influence the country, that there are some people with whom they would like to have a conversation with me one-on-one, somewhere over drinks or for lunch. I am not having those conversations unless my permanent secretary is in the room or unless some other senior civil servant is in the room. Because I believe it is those little side conversations and side deals, many that were made in the port, that have brought the country to its knees. And when we are trying to debate whether public servants can get a 5% or not that they deserve, there were people who were getting large contracts that I know they didn't deserve. And that is because, sir, people have not been held accountable. We are holding each other accountable. And believe me, the Honourable Prime Minister is holding all of us accountable too. For the people. And sir, Mr. Speaker, sir, before I take my seat, there is nothing to say that we have some magic wand that we could wave and fix the country. There is nothing. You can't pound literally at a country for 10 years. Deny its greatest resource their opportunity to shine, which is the people. Treat the people as if they are things. Speak as a government about sending home 3,000 and 4,000 and 5,000 people, as if people don't matter. I understand the former governor of the central bank too, determining how we should sell the port and don't sell the port, because he all of a sudden now dictates what government policy is when he was in an administration that he couldn't even tell them what to do. To sell a top performing asset because he said so. Mr. Speaker, we have to be serious. We have to be serious. And every time I face my constituents, I know they are asking of me, Minister, what are you doing for me? Mr. Speaker, sir, I am sure you get the same question. What are you doing? And they also want us to hold somebody accountable for that which has transpired in this country in the last 10 years. And none of us will gloat over the demise of anybody, but that people have to be held accountable for what they have done to the people of this country is what I believe. And that we have to struggle to give people a 5% raise. But sir, I have so much faith in the leadership of this country through the Honourable Prime Minister and through all the other ministers that I am confident that before our term is done, if the policies that we implement are allowed to work, and I believe they will work, that we will be having another conversation about helping the public servants of this country very soon. I do. And so, sir, before I sit, just remember, as I said during the election, and many of us have said, these are hard times. But I believe a better day is coming, because we know that weeping will endure for a night, but that joy will come in the morning. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am obliged.
The Honourable Member for St. Thomas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's a great privilege to be here this morning, sir, to be able to give support in respect of, excuse me, sir, in respect of this matter we are debating. I want to highly commend this new government of just about 3 months old for restoring confidence in the people of Barbados, for giving them another opportunity to understand that hope is there, that their pride and vision for this dearly beloved country will return under the leadership of a woman. Sometimes it is important to put a woman in front. And I'm not saying that because I'm a woman, but I've recognized over the years sometimes the stability that women have when they rub shoulders with and partner with the males. It makes a tremendous difference. And the composition, sir, of this new government has a large number of men, but we, the few women who are there are about 6 of us in this honorable chamber. Sir, we will help, continue to help to hold the hands of our males and to guide them, because at the end of the day, all Barbadians must be counted. It's no sex thing. All of us are reliant on one another, and whatever policies are put in place will either make this country or break it. And so I am really very proud to be here and to lend representation, not only to the people of St. Thomas, sir, but the people of the rest of Barbados who are in contact with each and every one of us daily, outlining the challenges, lamenting what has happened to them over a 10-year period under a government that was visionless and under the leadership of a prime minister who spoke one day and said, now he has arisen from his sleep. Well, I'm glad that he can sleep forever, wherever he is. And the honourable member for St. Michael South, a young man with a vision, will carry that constituency and lend hope to the people of their land and other places. With time, sir, the confidence will even be better improved. This is another bold initiative, Mr. Speaker, that has been undertaken by the Barbados Labour Party government to rekindle that hope that is necessary for us to go to the next step of enjoying a better life. And the next step is not only for us who are Barbadian born, but those who are on this country, in this island with us, those non-nationals who were dragged through the mud and told ever so welcome, wait for a call. Or when they go to get health services, sir, they have to pay. And those who don't have any money are suffering, as our Barbadians are. It is wrong under a government whose members had enjoyed the free education that I did not get, that many other thousands of Barbadians, especially our foreparents, did not get, but they had common sense. And they were able to listen and employ measures that permeated the entire society, learning how to give, how to share, how to guide, how to protect, how to direct. But this government listened to nothing but among themselves. They peeped under themselves, and whatever they came up with at cabinet, it was fed here to us. Whether we liked it or not, they said, lump it. And I know the honourable member, past member for St. Philip West, said very boldly to his own party, time longer than twine. Today we know, yes, time is longer than twine, and the civil servants know it too, because we are here speaking on their behalf today, showing them that we care because we understand what a high quality service they offer to the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, the Barbados Labour Party supports its manifesto's pledges. It is not like the last administration of a Democratic Labour Party flavor, who said it wasn't a social contract. We see this as a social contract. And I have gone the length and breadth of this country and spoken to the people and informed them that we will make a difference, that we will ensure that their quality of life is better by the policies and programs that we will want to implement. This is another step, because we've gone ahead in sanitation to source those vehicles to make a difference in our communities. We have gone ahead at the South Coast area to make sure that we bring an ease not only to the residents, but to those in businesses and those who have to use those streets and live in those environs, the residents. And we are going to go on and on fulfilling our pledges where possible. Yes, we know that we have seen tremendous challenges in our economy, and a lot of it was man-made. So I'm not even going to deal with the former governor of the central bank. I'm not going to deal with the former advisor to the Democratic Labour Party who said that we were a mob of people going up to government headquarters when we had that march about the municipal tax, the solid waste, the municipal tax, that would have created so much havoc and suffering in this country. I am going to say that I am proud to be here and a part of this administration, because civil servants are extremely important to the management of the affairs of this country. And I speak from a background of knowledge and not just a background of hearing and seeing it, for I served my country 25 years in the classroom. And another 17 or so years in here as a member of parliament, and another 7 as a senator. So I have an understanding, because I am still 36 years going on 37, And I will continue to say that because that is how I feel with the reinvigoration of having to come here and represent the interests of Barbadians and see them smile again, Mr. Speaker. When you were canvassing, your people were all down in the dumps and disillusioned, and we're not so sure. But they came out and they spoke on the 24th of May to show us we are going to give you a chance and we're going to give you all 30. And so said, so done. And today we can come and give back to them because we've promised. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to say the Barbados Labour Party has delivered again. We know of aspects of empowerment that this Labour Party has offered to the people of Barbados from its inception. The franchise, the right to vote for poor people, to be given an opportunity to cast a vote for the member of parliament that they knew or they felt will give them the representation. The Tenantries for Freehold Purchase Act, 1981, that poor people living on plantations can purchase their spots at 10 cents per square foot, sir. The free education that we started at the West St. Joseph School and Parkinson School and a few others, and that was carried on by the late Right Excellent member for St. John, the Right Honourable Harold Walton Barrow. But Grantley Adams, now Sir Grantley, the Right Excellent as well, made sure that we went onto that stepping stone to start that whole aspect of free education, sir. Housing units, roads, urban and rural development, salary increases year after year or period after period after period. Legislation, especially the social engineering, that has really changed what has been going on in our country. Expungement from people's certificates of character. Ordinary people wanted a general worker job. And because they had thrown a stone when they were 15 years old and broke somebody's glass window in 1952 and 1972 and 1985 and 95, those people were turned away from working in the government sector. This Barbados Labour Party said, no, we will have it once they've lived 5 years or more without committing any felony. These people must be given a chance to work. And that is what you saw MTW, NCC, various janitors and general workers and so were given that new lease on life because that little thing, somebody accused you of stealing, didn't come in, you got dismissed, that now has been removed. So that gives people another opportunity to be able to work and to offer service, not to any politician, because I'm not expecting anybody to come and tell me, thank you, you helped me with a job, I helped a fellow job. I'm going to guide people through the path and speak to them about how they should deport themselves in the job and how to help to spend the money they have to work so hard for. But they don't have to bow down and genuflect to any of us, and I don't tolerate that. The other administration did that. Sent home people unceremoniously. I do not believe in pillorying people. At the end of the day, whether we belong to X party or Y party, we are all Barbadians. And so every civil servant will get the opportunity to earn and to be able to enjoy the increase that is being offered here today, sir. Our people were given the opportunity, sir, through the National Commission of Women, for women to rise to the fore, that we can have female judges. We can have females working in the areas where men often dominated. We have females who are engineers, females who are doctors, females who are principals, females who are working in agriculture at the highest level. The National Commission on Women, under the former member for Christchurch West, the Honourable Sir Henry Ford, is the person who headed up that institution, sir. So we can speak, sir, of appointments for Barbadian civil servants, where persons who were working in a vacant position for 3 years or more would have been given the opportunity to be appointed as civil servants. And we have seen janitors, general workers, and others that persons will consider at the bottom of the ladder get their appointment. And rather than a temporary worker where they never got gratuity when they finish work after 25 and 30 and 40 years, those persons now get a gratuity. They were appointed by a Barbados Labour Party government in the late 1990s, early 2000s as permanent members of this institution called Barbados Civil Service. And so, Mr. Speaker, I can go on and on, because as a result of that, they got letters to show that they were employed and appointed by the government, and they could get letters to go to the bank to borrow some money to build a house. They had letters they could take to the embassy to go on a little trip. After all, when they took it before, there was no guarantee that there were permanent workers in this country. And they were able to do so much under a Barbados Labour Party government. Again today, we are representing the interests of workers in Barbados, and we want them to go forward, continuing to offer the high quality service that is required of them, Mr. Speaker. A Barbados Labour Party government has determined that the students at the university, despite the economic situation, will be able to go, and they do not have to source that money for those tuition fees that so many hundreds of them had to step away from the university between 2013 and 2018. That is what I call vision. That is what I call love for humankind that this Barbados Labour Party will continue to offer. And so I want, Mr. Speaker, sir, to say EduTech as well has helped to empower us through that curriculum reform. That is why we are seeing so many of our students now coming out with the scholarships and the exhibitions, and so many of our young people doing excellent work because they have been given an opportunity and a new lease on life through EduTech to be on the cutting edge with the technology, but through other forms of changing up the curriculum, they are now excelling in a way that blesses my heart. And I hurt, Mr. Speaker, when I saw some changes happen in our educational system where our young people appeared to be so disenfranchised and so disillusioned. Today, there is hope for them that they can continue University of the West Indies, the community college, and other aspects of endeavor to be able to achieve the goals, sir, that they have set. We set the trend, sir, for nursery education in Barbados, where poor people's children stayed at home until they were 4.5 years old. Today, there are nursery schools across the length of Barbados that are for free for our nursery children 3 years old and up to be able to get the privilege for early interventions, because many of them came to us at 4.5 years with many deficits. I know, because that is my area of expertise, early childhood education. And so I thank the Labour Party government, and the only thing I can thank the last administration for is that they have continued. And there are institutions that have offered the buildings and the construction and so, because that is something we cannot lose sight of. We can't look after those at university level or tertiary level and forget those at the cradle grade stage and so on, who need that kind of intuition to be able to bring them up to the standards. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am not going to go to talk over about the improvements over our time, because we knew we had good roads and we had buses and so on. That's not what we want to dwell on today. I want to support the honourable member for St. Peter, however, and all other members who have spoken already about the high quality service civil servants have offered. And I see it every day. I live it every day of my life, and therefore I understand what is being offered and the kind of quality work and the intricacies of that work that help us to be able to bring these documents here today, that help us to be able to reach into the community with the vision that we have, that help us to flesh it out so we can put it on paper and help with those policies and programs that trickle down to all and reach out into the far aspects of this country to make Barbadians the best people there are in this hemisphere and in the world. And I highly commend them, sir, for their high quality service. We now have, sir, Mr. Speaker, to forget, well, you can't quite forget it, because I will never forget 1991 to 94 when I was in the classroom as a single parent. Could not buy myself a new underpants during that period because the 8% cut almost pushed me down to the psychiatric hospital, trying to make ends meet to educate a growing son when we knew how difficult it was at that time for civil servants. Thank God again the Labour Party came and said, no, civil servants suffered too much. We are going to remove that 8% cut and give back civil servants their money. So said, so done, under the former Right Honourable leader who would have been the Member of Parliament for St. Peter. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm not going to deal anymore with what happened with the last administrations. I just want to say, sir, that allowances were taken away from even police officers. Those men and women who go out there in the night, in the daytime, we see what is happening with weapons across the world. Our Barbadians are not left out. Every day our police officers, but their allowances have been cut. Some of them have not got new uniforms. The boots are gone. Those persons who are working as court marshals, they are suffering. There's so many others whose allowances were cut during this 10-year period that I too call it the lost decade, because a government that was clueless did not care about Barbadians. Health care and the challenges we had, Mr. Speaker. And when we saw that new and young blood, I love and admire young people once they show respect and once they carry out the mandate that is offered to them. But when we saw the unions come up, sir, with these young, bright individuals at the leadership and serving on the executive, a former prime minister, the member, the right honourable member who represented St. Michael South, said they were like new wine in old wine skins. And those young people at the inset of their outset of the position they held, they were pilloried by a Democratic Labour Party government. Those callous comments destroyed whatever interest we had. But I am thankful that those young people are strong and resilient, and that they continue to carry out and look after the needs and the wishes of their members, because at the end of the day, representation is important, whether the times are good or bad. Once people have put their confidence in leaders, leaders have got to perform, particularly in the interests of the people, but not forgetting what the economic situation is like or what the circumstances are like. And so how could a Barbados Labour Party, sir, that was born out of the bosom of the Barbados Workers Union in the 1940s, late 1930s, early 1940s, overlook Barbadian workers, civil servants who have been suffering for 10 years with all those draconian measures that were put in place by the last Democratic Labour Party government? It is not only the Right Excellent Sir Grantley Adams, sir, but with him was Sir Hugh Springer, the Right Excellent, sir, and the Right Excellent Sir Frank Walker. And if unions were not important to us, they will not be they will not be comprised or constitute a section of our national heroes, sir. They made a difference in the times when Barbadians suffered in the cane fields, in the factories, on the roads, in the houses of the plantation owners. And so those men got together with a few women to make a change in the quality of life of Barbadians and how they are dealt with in their places of work. And so we will continue to go on. Indeed, we must not be short-minded when we know that C2 SAG was born during that period between 1991 and 1994, when those salaries were cut, and they did exceptionally good work to be able to bring all the unions together to come up with policies and programs and the vision to say, no, the unions are important in this exercise. We all must go forward. And I laud all the unions, because, Mr. Speaker, I must tell you, I was a serious unionist. I wasn't like anything, the member for Christchurch, West Central, whatever it was, East Central. He was the president, I wasn't the president. I was a member of the executive, and I put the fire under him, sir, because I knew that teachers should have been given better deals, and I continue to put the fire under him, sir, even when he was the honourable member of this chamber, because I believe that there must be vision in our various institutions, including our unions. We must always show the love, the care, the understanding. And so, sir, 10 years almost of no salary increase has really impacted on our workers. Many of them had their houses threatened. Many of them had families that got broken. Many of them were not able to enjoy the quality of life, to offer something to their parents and their guardians as a result of the salary cut. Many of them live day to day trying to eke out in order to survive in this country. It is okay for people to see us all well clad or cladded, but sometimes in our homes there are so many challenges because the money does not stretch. How do you feel going to get a loan for a house or mortgage, going out there to get a loan for a little car to drop you to school or to work or wherever you're going because you know that you're not going to get a bus on time and you're late all the time. You don't want for people to say, where are your virtues now? You mean punctuality and regularity have gone through the window? You're coming late, and some of our leaders pillory us if you come late, and perhaps that is right. But I'm saying you go and engage yourself to be able to borrow some money to extend the house from the credit union, and then whine, no salary increase or your salary cut. It is a burdensome experience, Mr. Speaker. I have lived it, and so I know it. And therefore, I want to say today how happy I am for the privilege to be able to lend my support in respect of this $60 million that have been put today for the civil servants to be able to get that 5% increase. Yes, others are saying, how do you drop from 23 to 5? That is not the point. Unionists usually start high, and because of the various phases of negotiations, they consider, yes, what the economy is like, and they will tailor what they have asked because of a realistic thing eventually. But this, because we know of the hardships, and the honourable member understands, sir, that what was being done by the former governor of the central bank and printing money did not make sense. He needs to deal with that. I want for us, sir, to be able to look at these folks and say to them, we are trying our best, and they have seen it. We know it is a bold step. We know that we are waiting word from the international agencies about what is happening in Barbados. We know we have had another downgrade, but we understand why, because we had 21 before, and we had left an economy that was booming when the former United Nations representative said we were bursting at our seams. But that money just got whittled away. Somehow I don't know where it has gone, but Barbadians keep suffering as a result of the clueless government that has just demitted office. And so our pensioners are happy today. Those receiving the non-contributory pension, because they got their increase a few days now. They are happy, sir, to have been able to receive. And I am happy that the non-contributory pensions will also get the 2/3 increase, and the contributory pensioners will get a little 2/3 increase. Because some of our pensioners' funds were taken away from them, and I talk always, and I will keep talking about it, Mr. Speaker, I can't be a hypocrite. Not only my sister, but so many hundreds of other pensioners who formerly received 2 pensions. One was taken away, the smaller amount was taken away. If they were getting a 700 in one and a 500 in the other, the 500 was taken away. You know what those old people did with their pensions, though, sir? Some of them paid their land tax, some of them improved their houses, some paid the insurance for the little houses they were in. My neighbor, sir, who drove the tractor into Harrison's cave to bulldoze that cave, and to be able for us to see that great hall over the years, the many years when the efforts were made in the late 70s, early 80s, where bulldozers boulders were falling. He took that bold step to drive that excavator into Harrison's cave to put a root in there, and it is the 8th wonder of the world, Mr. Speaker. His pension, one of them was taken away. It destroyed the quality of his life with a young wife working for a small salary and 3 children. What have we done to our societies? My sister has now stepped into early dementia. Every day, why will they take away my pension? I've worked so hard. It's only me. I am happy today, sir, that the contributory pensioners will get a little something. They have been asking all the time. And you know what they told me, sir? The non-contributory ones have a little bit, count mistress. Tell your boss we thank her for that. A little bit content is great gain. Mr. Speaker, sir, you know why it has become very important for them? Because they were expected and they have been paying a handling fee. Their medication has been changing and they prefer to stick to what they were using before. And so they pay a handling fee at the private pharmacy because the government pharmacies don't always have the one that they're comfortable with. They are happy today when they go to the supermarket because of the high cost, the extra 2.5% in VAT and so on. Our pensioners feel it too. If they go to the hospital and they apply for, and they make arrangements to have a cataract removed, if they go to have some other procedure done, some of them are waiting 3 years, 4 years, 5 years before they can get the attention. So this little funding here, extra today, sir, and the one that they would have gotten last month will help our people to be able to enjoy a better life. Mr. Speaker, I want to say how happy I am that this initiative has been taken for this salary increase, so that a little more hope, a little more joy, a little more caring and sharing can happen in the various households across Barbados. And I advise those civil servants and pensioners and others who will get the increase, sit back, work it out in your head, spend the money wisely. I have learned how to spend money wisely because in this position I still have to look decent on the road. I can't take anything, I never will. I ask God to guide me and to guide these young members of this honorable chamber and the other place, sir. Not to take anything from anybody. Don't give anybody any contract for anything in return. Keep your pride, keep your dignity, keep your character, because the eyes are on every one of us as leaders in this country, whether we're in the bank, in the schools, in the insurance companies, in the factories, wherever we are as leaders, we must live a righteous life, live by the book. Because at the end of the day, when we have reached that old age, if the Lord so allows, we must be able to sit back and be the mentors. We must be the ones who will guide the youth. There are a lot of people who will come to you, they will give you good encouragement, but they want something for something. It is like a man coming to a young girl and giving her all pretty talk, how beautiful she is. He can give her diamonds, he can give her this, give her that. And when she say, so what are you giving me in return? That is what the life of a politician is about. That is what the life of a leader is about. People come, they try to coach you, they try to whatever, and then you make any one mistake, you are in trouble. I am encouraging the young civil servants out there, don't take any chances. Don't go and take it, because when finished, you have to face the crime. And
The honourable member has 2 more minutes
I'm
left.
wrapping up. Thank you, sir. You have to get if you commit a crime, you have to get the time that is commensurate with the crime you take. And so I encourage them, take your funds, use them wisely, plan purposefully, and make sure that those who are young and still have parents and guardians, share with them. For the note I am finished on, Mr. Speaker, is to do with the elderly, who, some of them are very comfortable because they're in their right minds. But Mr. Speaker, if I did not have on a good old-time head, I would have died within the last 2 to 3 months. Almost every day, no less than 25 calls for senior citizens who are suffering. Senior citizens whose funds are being taken away. The abuse is so tremendous. Member for honourable member for St. Philip West, St. Philip North, ma'am. It is so tremendous. The challenges of our seniors. I know this extra amount will still help them, whether they're contributory or non-contributory pensioners. But we need for some formal aspect of the legislation. For abuse, we have it for children, we have to have it for the elders. Their money is sometimes taken away by grandchildren who won't do it. It is taken away by children who don't care. Sometimes urban and rural build houses for them, and the families that are young and have strength and full of strength, they occupy the houses, and the old people still stay in the old houses. Some of them, they take the money and they buy a little macaroni pie, and so you cannot give a senior citizen macaroni pie to eat every day with no vegetables or anything. Some are diabetic, some have amputations, and the money is there, but the money for the prosthesis is taken and whittled away by some other young or some other caregiver or somebody. It is wrong, Mr. Speaker. And so I say today, I am thankful for today because it's the first time in almost 10 years that the civil servants of Barbados who work beyond human call, like the ones in the Ministry of Finance, I honor them. Those who are teachers and professors and so, because they have to burn the midnight oil too. Those who are watchmen and general workers and maids and so, in the different tiers of employment, collectively, they all work and do excellent work to the pride and joy of the employees and their families. And so today I salute them, Mr. Speaker, and those in the unions as well who give the representation to those distinguished people. And I close by saying, sir, it is a joy to be here today to see a change in the culture of management of the affairs of this dearly beloved country of Barbados. And I pray that we will continue to be on this train, on this track, where all Barbadians can see, and that they will come on board and assist with that spirit of volunteerism that is critical, not only in the communities, but in the workplace, because we have to come together, come up with a vision, volunteer, that the institutions of which we are members will rise from one level to the next. I want to say, sir, I am proud to be a member of this great Barbados Labour Party, 80 years old and showing people that age is only a number. Because to exist in a country or in any institution
If you all remember,
at
Wayne,
80
please.
years old, sir, it says it is a wonderful job and experience that that particular political party has had, as is the Labour Party. And our motto speaks for us as they close in this sentence. Our motto says, a better life for our people, a better life for our civil servants. I wish to thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for City of Bridgetown.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House be suspended for lunch until 2 p.m.
I beg to second that.
Question is, the next Honourable House be suspended until 2 p.m.
I beg to second that.
All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honourable chamber is suspended until 2 p.m.